Hello everybody, Nigel here with you, Nigel's Modelling Bench. Welcome back. This is part 7 now of the build of this Airfix Lancaster Dambuster B.III. And this one is going to be all about wings. In the last one, if you remember, we did the wheelbase. Jess has got a bottle, sorry. And here we've got the filler in the, well, it's black super glue in the fuselage, and we're going to let that all dry. I did actually put some in these window areas here, so I can see the centres. What I'm tempted to do is put a drill or something in there, or burr, and get rid of that line in the centre and then put some clear in there after we've painted everything. So we'll see how that goes. I've never tried that before, so we'll experiment on this one. Right, so basically I want to leave this to dry. This will probably shrink back. That will probably shrink back. This seam will definitely shrink back all the way along here, and we'll end up, you can see now it's all nice and smoothly done. I could spray that with primer and that look lovely. Come back in a few days and that'll have a line there. So that's because the solvents are coming out of the glue and the plastic shrinks back. So what I'm going to do now is concentrate on looking at the wings. Now, there's two aspects we need to look at with these wings. One is making sure they go together nicely, which I do in all my builds, and I'll show you how I do that now. Two is because these, normally you would get your wing halves and you'd glue them together and then you'd stick them on your model. But because on this one, they are sandwiching around the model, what we're going to do is make sure that we're going to fit. So we're going to have that wing there, and then we're going to put this wing on here. I haven't actually done this off camera, but I want to make sure that everything's going to fit nicely and it's all going to be good. So we can see here that it looks like we may have a bit of an issue up here straight away. It doesn't seem to want to go together. There's some misalignment there. I don't really know what's going on. Let's just check the alignment at the bottom. Okay, so that's gone in lovely. Well, something clicked in there. It looks like the ends of these, they have these blocks, and it looks like they don't actually want to engage. Now this is when you've actually, if you are a beginner, you may want to have a go at the Airfix Hellcat when it gets re-released, because I'm sure it will. This is one of the biggest problems with that kit, is getting everything to go in the wings. It's a nightmare. So you can see here we've got an issue where that doesn't actually want to go in. You've got that piece there has got a tab on the bottom of it where it's the spar, and it doesn't actually want to go into that slot in the wing. So what I'm going to do is put it in first and then bring the rest of the wing up and see what happens. It's not very happy about that. It's got that stiffener it has to go by. There we go, it's gone in now. But you see I'm being quite abusive and manhandling it, and it's not, you know, it's not how it should be. It should just go together. So there straight away we have an issue. If we follow the instructions, they tell us to glue the upper wings in first, and then you come along and put the bottoms in. Well, that would be a nightmare in this case. So what we're going to have to do is look at manipulating this and making it fit. Now I don't want to start cutting tabs off, because if I start cutting tabs off to make it fit, then we could get alignment problems with the nacelles down the road. So we've got to actually manipulate this. So it looks like we've got quite a seam line there. Okay, you can see this on the camera. Maybe if I get a pen and highlight it, or a pencil, you can see here there's quite a seam line on there. So I'm going to get a narrow, is this narrow enough? It's just the right size. This is actually available from supermarkets. This is a nail file cut up. And it's great for things like this because you can make it custom fit. Now I haven't cut this because I wasn't expecting this to happen. Let's have a look what difference that's made. Probably quite a bit. And there we go. Just by taking that bit of flash off there, let's see, this one's probably got the same. Yes, it has. You can perhaps see it. There's a mould seam there, which is like a great big flange on the edge of there. So we can just come along and sand that away, just like so. There we are. And now this one will probably fit straight away as well. And there we go. As you can see, perfect fit. They go up there. We've got a nice joint with the fuselage where it meets the wing. And that's all good. So you can hear that clip in. It was this side we were working on first, wasn't it? So we can clip that in there, and then we can bring the wing top down to meet it. Just give it a little squeeze, and we can see now that straight away the leading edge is going together absolutely fine. The rest of it is going together fine, and it's all closing up nicely. We've got no big gaps. It's all closing up around that wheel bay, and you can see what a lovely job they've done on that wheel bay. Look how lovely that looks. Yeah. So there we go. Right. So you can see we've got some flex in them, so that'll allow them to fit. So we're good to go there. Right, the next thing we want to do, we're going to need a Sharpie for this. Where is my Sharpie? I should have got it out before I started, sorry. And normally I would use a pencil, but for this example I'm going to use a Sharpie. And those who watch my channel regularly would have seen me do this loads of times. One of the biggest problems I have, especially with 70-second scale, it's not so bad with 30-second scale, or maybe 48, but when you get to 70-second scale, you can see here, when I glue this together, I'm going to have quite a fat edge on this wing. And when you look at it, you can see that most of the fat edge is down to the bottom. It's the bottom of the wing. And you can also see when I put the wing together, just like so, you can also see there's a gap. Okay, now what we're going to do, to make sure we have perfect alignment and everything, I'm going to put some lines like this all around on the wing where there's a wide area like this. You can see this wide area where it joins together. So all the way around there, come across here as well. Just going to do that with a pen. Now I wouldn't normally use a pen because when it gets with the glue and everything, it'll make a mess, and that'll be that. So I've got a brand new sanding stick here, a brand new Infini 400 grit, never been used. The reason I'm doing this is to make it easy to see. Now, with no pressure, I'm not going to come along. That pin there is just going to be a pain, so we're going to cut that off. And I'm going to cut it off of this one as well, because it's just an alignment pin, and often they hinder with large assemblies. So what I'm going to do is just now lightly sand, and we can see straight away where the sanding stick is touching. And we can see here it's only touching on the very forward edge. You can see it touching there, and then here it's coming around to the inside, and then there it goes to the outside, and then it's going to the inside. So you can see this is not flat. So we're just going to keep sanding. We're going to have a look at the wing tip as well. You can see this is actually very good. Normally you end up sanding all loads away here. This is very good indeed. Well done, Airfix. I also noticed on one of these wings I've got a short shot, which is not well done, Airfix. I have a short shot on one of my trailing edges. Where was I saw that? It would have been on the upper, not the lower. It must be on this one. There we go. Got a short shot here. Look, you can see there's a short shot there. There's a short shot there. So we'll have to do some repair work there. A short shot is basically, if you can imagine, you've got a cavity, you inject the plastic in, you don't inject enough plastic, or you don't have enough pressure, and you end up, it goes in and it doesn't completely fill the cavity, and that's what happens. It's called a short shot. So here we go. Now you can see here I'm sanding, and it's contacting here, but it's leaving a big hollow there. And we're going to keep sanding until we get contact all over, because I don't want a big hollow in the middle, because what will happen is the glue will pull it together and we'll end up with a dip in the wingtip. So no pressure, just very, very gently. See, I'm going in circles as well. I'm not doing this. I don't want to end up sort of, you know, making a ploughed field. Just very gently going in circles, going along. You can see here we're touching on the inside edge, and that's always a problem because that will give us a gap down the back. So just keep sanding until we have the whole edge shown, and we're just going to do this just to sharpen up the back of that flap aperture. And there we go. Just sharpen that up a bit. Go around here. This black is actually in the plastic. It's from the injection process, so I can keep going as long as I want. That's never going to disappear. So you can see now we can go across that bit there as well. Just get it all sounding, and now when we put it together we should see an improvement. Oops, got it misaligned. There we go. So we should see an improvement, but it's still quite fat. So I'm going to come along now and do the lower side as well. You see, as soon as we start rubbing with our sanding stick, you can see we've got a line there and a line there. So that means that it's actually convex. So it needs to be sanded flat so that we get the trailing edge. As you can see, no pressure. I'm just letting the sanding stick sit on the wing. I don't want to start putting loads of pressure in because I'll start removing too much material. All I'm doing is getting it so that this back edge is completely sanded. And as I say, circles always go in circles. And it's best if you can use a new sanding stick. And don't use anything too coarse. If it's too coarse, it will take too much plastic off, and if you end up with a really thin feathered edge, it makes it very, very difficult to glue. Obviously the thinner the better, because in 70-second scale it would be a sharp edge. There's also, remember, don't push. If you start pushing, you start to do like pushing the wing away, you'll start to sand it out of flat. You'll make it worse than it already is. There we are, just doing that, no pressure. Just sanding away until all the pen is gone from the outside edge. I'm not worried if there's a bit of a hollow here, but as long as we've got a good land on the outside edge, it's sanded. And now this will go together and it will fit perfectly, as they say in New York. You can see the leading edge is perfect, the wingtip is perfect, and the trailing edge is also perfect. And it's a bit thinner. We could take some more if we wanted to, but I would advise against going too thin, because what happens then when you come to glue stuff, the glue kind of melts it and you end up with a very soft, sort of not very nice edge. There's a sprue nib on here, which I'm just going to make sure I remove from there. There we go, that's gone. Just going to make sure that little bit there is flat, that's jutting out, because that's got to sit flat on the on here. Just want to make sure that is nice and flat. We can see if I just put the pen on here, you can see when I sand it, you can see that it's not flat at all. So we're just going to sand that until the pen is gone. There we go, and that'll go together nice and flat now. So there we are, line up the wingtip, bring in the root. There we go. There we are, we have some lovely dihedral as well, which is what's lacking on the Revell kit and on the hatchet part works. So there we are. We've also got here, you can see on this wing here we have a pair of landing lights. Hong Kong models made this mistake. They put landing lights in both wings, and you can see here there's a witness. If you can catch it in the light, you can see there's a witness of where they were. We're going to fill them and sand them flat. And also we have back here what's called sink marks, which are quite common in Airfix kits of old. They're much better now than they used to be. But what causes sink marks is because of the soft nature of the plastic. Behind here you've got these ribs, and what happens is, because there's more mass of plastic there than there is there, it cools at a different rate. So it ends up shrinking more than this does. As it cools, it shrinks. So because that takes longer to dry, or longer to cure, to cool, set, whatever you want to call it, you end up with the sink mark. So what we're going to do, we're going to put some super glue in there, and then we're going to sand it nice and flat and it'll disappear. It's not actually very serious, and I wouldn't possibly not worry about it. But if I come over here with a pen, you'll see what I mean. I just very gently sand this area. You can see there's that line down the middle that's remaining shiny and the pen staying in there. Yeah, that's the sink mark. Now generally with aircraft that are painted with matte paint, you would not see it. Okay, so we wouldn't worry about it. Now I'm going to get rid of that. I've got some IPA here. I wouldn't recommend anything stronger. I'm going to get a cotton bud, and I'm just going to put the cotton bud in the IPA and then run it around and dissolve that ink. I only put it on there to show you. I wouldn't normally do this to my models, but needs must. When I need to show you stuff, then I need to do it. But what would normally happen here is that would actually come through the it would actually come through the paint. It would come through the primer, come through the paint, come through everything. But if you remove the majority of it now, and we're going to be sanding here anyway, but, there we go, that's that pretty much gone. So what we're going to do, we're going to come in, I mean you can see here, just from that little bit of sanding, the sink marks have gone from there, and they've gone from there pretty much. So it's only just here we really need it. So there we are. I don't know what the other one's like. What's this one like? This one looks a lot better. You see, this one doesn't appear to have it at all. If I sand it, it will stick out like a sore thumb. But this is the older Airfix, where you've got this grainy plastic. If you look at my review I've just done of the 2 Spitfires, in fact I haven't just done them as far as you're concerned, it was weeks ago for you, but I have in real time, I've just done them. If you look at them, you'll see Airfix now have a nice smooth plastic, not this grainy finish. I actually quite like this grainy finish for painting, but sometimes it's annoying if you want to do it gloss. It's annoying. So that's not how you put the wings together, is it? So I'm going to go on and do the same on this one, on this pair, as I've done on that one, and get it all nice and flat, and then we can test them on the fuselage again. Okay guys, I have just done something very, very stupid, and I've done it a couple of times before, and I need to stop doing it. I've been turning the camera off and talking, and then I've been turning the camera on and saying I'm working off camera. In other words, the wrong way around. So I've just been talking about how I do this. So basically what I did was I sanded this area here. The camera is on now, isn't it? Yes. Right. I've been sanding this area here so that I got a nice round circle where that indentation was, where that clear panel goes in the upper escape panel. I must admit I prefer the Revell way of doing this. What they've done, they've made the hatch as a clear part, and then you put it in, just mask the circle and spray the model. But here they've got it moulded on, so you know. But each company has its own little foibles. So what I did then, I've got a rule, and I can see the centre line because I've got the centre seam. And I've got a rule, I found the centre, and using my pointed tool I've made a pot mark. And then I've gone in with these drills. So these are the microbox drills. I can't remember if I talked about these before, but they're brilliant. And they've basically gone in there with a 0.6 drill and just drilled in about, you know, 0.5 millimetre or whatever. Then I've gone in with a 1.6 drill and just gone down until it bottoms out. And then I've got my 3mm burr here, which I think you see me, yes you have, you saw me use on these holes here. And then just go in and just basically remove some material to make a divot in there. And then I should be able to come in with this tool here. I think this is 5mm diameter, I think. Where's my calipers? If you don't have a set of these guys, thoroughly recommend them for modelling. They really are good. Yeah, that's 5mm. So that's cool. So what I can do now is put that in here. This is my David Union 150 pin vise, which is absolutely awesome. I'll have it sticking out a bit so you can see what I'm doing. What I'm going to do is just turn this into there until that black line of super glue around the outside disappears. Now don't be tempted to use a power tool on this because it'll get hot and you'll melt the plastic. I'm just pushing that in there gently, and what I'm going to have to do is go a little bit deeper. So you'll see if I can go a bit deeper with the 3mm. Yes, let me do that. And then I can come in with the 5mm. Because this is 4mm diameter here, so obviously I want something bigger than 4 so that I can make this concave shape. Because I don't really want to go right through. If I do go through, it's okay. But what I want to do is make a sort of bowl to put some crystal clear in, or some clear varnish or something, after the build. We can see that we're slightly off center there, so I'm just going to push it over that way. We're very, very slightly off center, so I'm just going to make sure we get, there we go. You can see we've just got a witness of a black line there around the edge. We're not going to worry about that too much. No one's going to notice that much. And no one's going to be looking at it other than me. And, well, you if you keep watching. So, there we go. So we can come in here. Just with our tool, go in there again. And I know we've not gone deep enough, so I'm going to go back in with the 3. Go a bit deeper. If I go through on one, I'm going to go through on both so that they look the same. I think we should be okay. Yeah, we're going to have to go a bit deeper here. And then we'll go in with the 5. And you see what we can do then is just paint them. Once the model is completely finished, we can paint them black and then put the clear in there. We could even make up a little disc if we wanted to and put that in there. And there we go. So that's our upper. What I'm going to do now is just give it a gentle turn with no pressure, just to check it's all rounded up and everything. And what you could do is also, with something slightly bigger, is just go around just to take any edges off or anything. There we are, that's our divots now in the roof. So we can put some clear in there and they'll look like windows. Right, if you go right through, the trouble is sometimes the crystal clear will sag. So I hear you say put the model upside down and then you get a ball. So it's very difficult when you've got windows that big. It's if you want to see what I mean, go and have a look. There's a guy done a beautiful build of a Revell 1/72 B17F on YouTube, and unfortunately in that kit they give you decals to represent the upper windows in the nose. It's got windows in front of the cockpit up here, and they give you decals. So it's cheap and tacky, isn't it? So I've got the kit. I'm going to be doing a build of it on here for you guys. In fact, by the time you see this, you may have already seen the start. And yeah, it's, so he's drilled them out, or cut them out, and then he's put crystal clear in there. They do look a bit, they look a bit sort of concave. That's the way it goes. Right, so we've got our wings sanded out. I've done the sink marks here, so I've done them and sanded them out. I've also repaired this bit back here. I just basically put super glue in the short shots and then sanded it, so you can see that we've got a bit of a black area there. We could have done it after the wing was all put together. And there was also a space there where the parts have ripped out of the sprue on the kit. So what we need to do now is paint all of this. I'm going to paint all of this here black, and paint all of this here black, and then mask off the centre and paint the outer areas green. We're also going to do all the inside of the flap areas black as well. So just check for there's no dust or bits and pieces in there. I'm just going to give that another sand just to tighten up those holes around there, just make them look a bit nicer. And I think what I'm going to do here is use a black primer and then probably give it a wash just to bring it back. I want these areas to be blacker than the black that's on here, because this was actually sort of painted with a black paint, and the fuselage would have been in a colour called night black, which isn't jet black. We're going to be playing with some blacks, and yeah. Anyway, as I say, this isn't necessarily for beginners, it's for people who want to take their modelling that step further. So I'm just going to just noticed I've got a bit of an edge on there from sanding, so I'm just going to make sure that that's not there. Right, when you've got stuff like that, it's best to deal with it as you see, because you'll forget and you won't come back to it. And I've also got some paint on the top of the wings there I just want to get rid of, on top of those spars, because they're going to be the wing strength. So I'm going to go on and get this painted. I'll airbrush it and also get all the inside of the wings painted as well. I don't think these need to be done, do they? There's none of that going to be seen. Okay, yeah, I'm going to do this area here, because if the nacelles don't come right up to that, you're going to see grey plastic in behind. So I'm going to do that area around there as well, just in case we see. I'll just show you again, see what I'm talking about, so I'm not going mad. When you look into the wheelbase, we may see that plastic down in there. Get my pointer. We may see that plastic down in there. When we look through those holes, we may see there. Okay, so I'm just going to spray around there as well. So there we are. I'll get some Mr. Surfacer black primer on there, and then we'll just sit tight for a while. Okay, so before we do any painting, the what I've got today is actually January the 17th, 2024, and it's about -3 outside. So I don't want to go open the window and have the extractor on over the painting, so I'm going to have to leave that till another day. But one thing I do want to do is fit these landing lights in, because they're so easy to forget, and you get the wind together and, and then you're buggered. So what we're going to do, same as we did before with the windows in the fuselage, I'm going to get my Sharpie and I'm going to go around the hole, make sure we've got no grey plastic showing. I've just slipped there and made a big mess, but never mind, because we're going to clean it up after anyway. I just want to make sure we've got no grey plastic showing, because nothing looks worse, as I said when we did the fuselage windows. You've got the all nicely painted black underneath, you've masked off your lights, and then you've got this grey ring around the lights. The other thing I want to get rid of, as I've shown you before, when you look at these clear parts, when you look at them on angle, the edges become chrome. When you look through the part, you see this chrome edge. So we're going to go around here with our Sharpie, and we're going to paint the outside edges of our landing light with a black pen to get rid of that chrome look. And I'm having trouble getting the nib of the pen in between the lights. I'm sure we'll get there eventually. There we go. So there we are. Now these lights have actually got frames around them, so no doubt the masks in the Edward mask set will just be circles. If not, we'll use our own circles. But what I don't want to see is when you look at the light, you see this chrome rim, and it's going to stick out like a sore thumb, particularly because the bottom of the aircraft is black. So clearly that's going to go into there that way. Alright. Now you can see when we look at those in there, we don't have any chrome edge, we don't have any grey plastic showing or anything. What I should have done was shown you how it looks before putting the ink on. I'm just going to pop them out actually. Get some more ink on that edge there, on the square edge. On there and there. And then we can just pop them in. The right way round, Nige. There we go. Pop them in the right way round, and they'll sit in there like that. And then we can just take a drop of extra thin, just like we did before. Remember on the side windows, we can come along and just come in from the side, tap with the glue. Coming from the side, tap with the glue, and then don't touch it. Just leave it. Do not touch it at all. Okay? Do not touch it. Right. There we are. Brilliant. So we just leave that to dry. I'm going to put that, going to rest that here. In fact, I'm going to stand it up in my glue holder, and then that'll just sit and dry, and we're going to leave that alone. Right, I'll be back in a minute after we've got some painting. Right, as if by magic, here we are, all done. So the wheelbase are all painted now, all nice and black. So that's all done. This is actually a paint called Mr. Surfacer 1500. It's a fantastic primer. If you want a black primer, I use it a lot on a lot of my models. If you know my channel, you'll know that I absolutely love this stuff. Thin it about 50-50 when it's new. As it gets older, it thickens up, so you need more and more thinners. And I thin it with this one. This is Mr. Colour Leveling Thinner. It's in a smaller bottle than you can normally get it in, but I've actually decanted it into a smaller bottle. You can actually use Mr. Rapid Thinner, again, and it comes in a bigger bottle, but I've used a small bottle. But I would recommend not using this, especially in the summer, because when it says rapid, it means rapid, and it will just dry like that. So if you've got a grainy finish or whatever, it will dry with a grainy finish. Whereas with the leveling thinners, obviously because of its name, it levels things out. So it's also handy to know, if you are new to the hobby, if you get this stuff, if you do end up painting and you get a rough finish, you can just spray this over the paint. Not, you know, you don't lay it on because it will just take everything off, but you can spray it over the paint and it will actually level it out. So there you go. Right. And it also works with enamels as well. You can use this with enamel paints as well. So so basically, as you can see, we've got the painting done. So I painted everything here black, and then I masked off with a 16mm wide strip of tape. I masked off the wheel bay area and then painted the grey-green. That's not interior green, that's grey-green. It's slightly darker than the actual interior green colour. And you can also see I've painted the back of the lights silver. They look very dark. I don't know why, but they do. They look very dark indeed. So what I need to do is go over that with a cotton bud, some IPA, and remove that excess even ink from where I went crazy with the Sharpie, wouldn't it? So we'll just get some IPA on there, and we'll just remove the excess just like so, and then you can see that now we have a lovely black line. We don't have any of that horrible chrome shiny stuff around the clear parts. So if that's one tip I could give people, that's the one I would give. That's impresses a lot of people, that one, and a lot of people have taken me up on it and do it on their models. So there we go. Right, so we're ready now to start getting the wings together. Let's just have a quick check in the manual, or in the instructions, shall I say. So we've done all that, so now we're here to putting the wings on. I'm going to change the build sequence slightly, I think, and I'm going to fit the bottoms of the wings first. The reason being, I want to make sure, that's that side, isn't it? It's the bottom. I want to make sure that we actually get these ends here. You can see this little end that sticks out here. I want to make sure that gets into the groove, and it's the only way I can see it's actually in there is by doing it this way round, because as you know, we had a little bit of problem earlier. So I'm just thinking, what I need to do is remove some paint. So I'm just going to remove, with my radius knife, I'm going to remove the paint from there. I'm going to remove the paint from here and here, and I'm going to remove the paint from there. And you can actually glue through paint. If you're using something like Tamiya Extra Thin, it will work through the paint, but you will always get a better bond with no paint there. Okay, so there we go. And then I'm going to do the same here. I'm just going to remove paint from there, paint from there, and from there. Don't go too mad with your knife, because you don't want to go removing loads of plastic. You just want to remove the paint. All the paint doesn't need to be gone. Just need to expose some plastic, and then the glue will get under the paint. So I'm tempted to do it the wrong way around. I'm tempted to fit the lower wing first, so that I can see that we're actually in that groove. You can hear there, I mean, I'm pushing it up and it's clipping in, and I really don't want to get the upper wing on and then find that I can't get that to happen. So if I just hold that in place, if I pinch that in my fingers, that holds that in place, and I can just try the upper wing and check that it's all going to go okay. Yeah, we're going to be fine. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to peg that into place. I'm going to use a clothes peg just to hold this wing into position. It's quite awkward, it wants to slide off. What about one of these? And that won't reach. As you can see, it's all wanting to not stay in position, so I'm going to have to find a means of holding it in there, and then I'll come back. There we go. I managed to, as soon as I turned the camera off, the clamp stayed on there. So there we go. I managed to get a peg on it just to hold it. So we've got some glue now on those spars, so the wing is now glued to the spars and onto those ends. So we're going to put that to one side to dry. I have noticed as well something I've done stupid. I said I was going to paint this area here because when we look up there, we'll see through those holes, we'll see the light grey plastic through here. And I've painted that side, not that side. Duh. So I'm going to have to, after it's all in, I'll go in and just blow that in with some black. And then we'll also paint the inside of the nacelle so that that's all black. This is unfortunate. It's in this light grey plastic and everything's black because any sort of witness of light grey plastic would stick out like a sore thumb. So I'm just going to put that down there. In fact, I've got this block here. I'm going to put it on there and then the pegs can not get pushed around. And we're just going to leave that to dry. And then hopefully our upper wings will go on okay. If we do have an issue, what we do with the extra thin is just come along and wet the areas again and then pull them and they will actually come apart. It's a good way of getting models apart, that is. So what I'm going to do now, rather than sort of sit around doing nothing, because I've had enough of waiting these last couple of videos, something I normally advise people to do, and if you watch my channel you'll know that I've done this regularly before, is look through the manual and look at parts where you've got like two halves going together. Like for instance, we could do, these tail planes, they're two halves going together. You glue them together at the beginning of the build and then you can put them one side to one side and leave them. When it comes then to using them, you actually don't have to wait around. Now, if I just sat here now and did nothing or twiddled my thumbs or did another model or something, the next thing we're going to do is put these tail planes together. And guess what? I'll put them together and I don't have to say we've got to wait now for them to dry so I can deal with the seams on the leading edge. So we can glue them together now. So that's something we can do. We don't want to do any of these engine nacelles because that means doing all this internal work and that's all part of the build. We'll do that on camera. Same here with these engine nacelles here. Going down through here, there's nothing in two halves there. There's nothing really to do here. There's nothing really there because the rudders are all in one piece. Engine covers, no, we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. We don't want to do any. Oh, there we go. Wheel halves. We can put the wheel halves together. That's actually the wrong wheel for this aircraft. It wouldn't have that. That's an anti-shimmy wheel. So we're going to have to do something with that. We could glue those two halves there together, or maybe leave them until we come to fit them on the fuselage, and then if they need narrowing or widening or whatever, then we can do that then. And then going along, obviously the bouncing bomb, those two halves can go together. So what we can do now is get the wheels off the sprues, get the tail planes off the sprues, and get the bouncing bomb parts off the sprues. We'll do these tail planes first because they are, we need to make sure that we've got the right half going to the right half. So I can see them on the sprue here. So this is sprue B. Another little tip for you guys, when you've used your sprues up, when you start removing stuff from your sprues, if you get rid of all, like this is where the wings were, so there's all this sprue was going out here, just cut that off and you've reduced it down and you're making room in your box. So it's like now I've got these two here. Now these two need to go together. So what I'm going to do is grab a Sharpie and I'm going to mark those two with an X. So I know those two are going together and these two that aren't marked are going together. So we can get those off the sprue, just like so. Just like that. Okay, and now once again we're going to be getting the wheels off as well, so we'll cut them off as well. Now you can see we've got all this excess sprue, so we can cut that off there and there, and cut that off there and there, We can put that in the bin or in the recycling if your recycling takes it. I don't put my sprues in the recycling anymore because sometimes they take them and sometimes they don't. So it's just easier just to put them in the bin, which is unfortunate really. But, and then we can cut those off of there. So that's that done. And then we can remove that, that, and that. And you shouldn't be using your nice clippers to do this. And that can go in the bin. So you can see now we've reduced those two great big sprues, which were the size of this one. We've reduced it down to that. So it's a good way to make room in your box. So there we go. So we're going to get these glued together. Oh, we need the bouncing bomb as well. Where's the bouncing bomb? We'll get those together. That's going to be a biggie because you know you really don't want to be waiting around when we're that close to the end of the build. So there we go. Right, I'll get these cleaned up and we'll get them glued together. Okay then guys, I don't know what it is with Lancaster tailplanes, but the manufacturers always seem to mess up. On the HK one they got them all wrong, and it's been corrected now. So if you buy a Hong Kong models Lancaster now, it's all been sorted. But the initial release, they had the pins that go into the fuselage were, you had to make your own pins for one side because they had pins top and bottom on one side and no pins on the other, so they should have had pins on both bottoms and no pins on the top sort of thing. And Airfix here have messed up because they got B.8 and B.9 going together and A6 and A7 going together. As you saw me, I marked those two on the A sprue. I've since gone back and checked which was which, but as you can see they both have pins, so if I try and put those together I can't. Okay, so that piece there they've got is A7. It's actually not what you want. This is actually a top. And they've done the same here as Hong Kong models did. So you can tell the difference when you look at these. You can see the difference in these panels. Okay, in fact when you use the two that are going to go together, you can see that this one, hang on, let me hold them both. This one has only one little mark on it and this one is covered in these marks. Those marks there are access panels for maintenance. You can see them on there. You can see the little, see all the marks on there that are scribed in, these ovals. They go on the bottom. So basically it's A6 going on to B8 and A7 going on to B9. So this is B8, this is A6, so that's going to go on that one there. And as you can see it looks weird because these inner tangs don't line up, they are staggered. And it's to make it a stronger assembly, which is a very, very good design. I've sanded the face. I'm just going to make sure the leading edge goes together nicely, which is what really matters. And you can see we've got lots of seam lines and stuff to get rid of. So what I'm going to do here, if I can pinch this together and just let the glue go into the gap. Excuse me. Just pinch it together and let the glue go into the gap. And this is the beauty of using liquid cement. Alright. I'm just going to make sure we've got something this end as well. Now one of the dangers with doing that is you can get the glue run down the side. But once you've got some experience and everything, you won't have to worry about that. Another way to do it is this is the Phil Flory method, is to do it upside down and just run the side of the brush along the seam. Okay, so turn that over and make sure we keep our fingers off the leading edge, and then we'll just run some glue into this trailing edge. We don't need to be tidy because this is all going to get covered up with the rudders and the elevators and all that. So there we go. Okay, so there we are. So that's that one together. Don't go pegging things because what will happen, I'll see if I can show you on here. Although these are quite small, they're quite strong. Quite often when you get halves like this and you start putting pegs on them, what you can do, especially with wings, is you open them up. You can see there I squeeze it in the middle and it opens up the gap. And that's what happens if you start pegging it. So if you do need to clamp it right on the edge, but be very careful that your glue doesn't run under the peg. Here we go, I'm going to squeeze it, put the cement in, let it capillary along, squeeze it, put the cement in, let it capillary along. Here we go. And that is that pretty much done. Just to make sure we can use the fill flooring method and run some glue along there like that. And then make sure we keep our fingers away from the edges. And then turn it over. Run some cement in just like so. Put some along there. Up there, and there we go. So that's that in place. So that's those two glued together. Now these wheels, what you can do is put them together and then run the cement round like I've just shown you. Or what you can do is stick them on a toothpick or something. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to shorten that to make the end fatter. Hopefully make it stay in there. There we go. That makes it easier to hold. And then we can get some of this Tamiya white glue, which is very similar to the Humbrol liquid poly. Need to be careful it doesn't all run off the brush. And we can run some of that around there, just like so. Just like that. And then we can drop this one on top. Making sure it lines up. And just squeeze it together. You know then you're going to get a nice strong solid joint because you've got good glue penetration. And you can see there we've got it looks like we've got a hole where the sprue is broken away from the wheel. So there we go. So we'll do the same on this one. Put that in the back. And this is one of the problems you can see on here. We've got the glue is all beaded around the brush. Be very careful of that with the thicker glues, because they will do that and then they will drip off onto your model. So make sure there's no model parts underneath you when you glue in. And then we'll drop that one on there, just like so. Give them a good squeeze, and then you know they're going to be nicely glued together. Okay, so there's a little tip for doing those halves. And when it comes to the bomb, just going to run a sanding stick over that half. We can't really run it over this half because it's covered in pins, but I'm sure the joint is fine. It's got a bit of a step. Let's try it the other way round. That's better. So yeah, even though there is no sort of instruction on which way it goes, as you can see, if I put it that way, I've got a step there. I doubt you can see it because of the grey plastic. And there's a step there. See that step? If I turn that around and put it together, we have no step. And then with this we can just come along and glue it from the inside, and that way we won't get any glue marks on the outside. And again, I would avoid pegging it, because what will happen is it will go oval and it will dry oval. So just leave it like that and then just stand it to one side and let it do its thing. Let it get welded together. That's what this glue does. It doesn't glue it in place. It doesn't glue the plastic. It melts. It's welding it together. So there we go. So that's that. Right, so we've got those done. They can just sit and dry out the way, and we can sit and wait for our wings to dry and everything, and then we can come back. I changed my mind. I've decided to glue these. These are the rear turret shrouds. Make sure you get the right ones. In fact, I'm just looking in the kit. I'm just going to see if there are alternatives. I've just taken these off the sprue and I'm not sure that they're the right ones, because some Lancasters had tapered fairing and some didn't. So where is it in the instructions? Come on, where are you? I haven't done a table either, have we? D4 and D3. So that's sprue D, D4 and D3, that's where I got them from, so that's correct. Okay, so again with the white glue, just put some on there like so. And I want to do this so that we can get rid of the seam on the top. We can just put that down on the bench. and then get it so that the top is nice, so we can use the back of the knife blade just to make sure it's nice and level. Okay, and as you can see, we're going to have to do a little bit of filling in there. We've got a bit of a gap going on. So just give it a good push together, and then we can use some extra thin on the inside just to guarantee we're going to get a good weld on there. So just give them a squeeze together. Get them nice and flat. There we are. Right. So again, we can leave that to dry, and then we'll have a seam to deal with. There we go. So we also need to do the tail wheel, which was what part numbers? Where were we? Come on. C29 and C28. So C29 and C28. There is sprue C. There's one half of the tail wheel I can see there. I'll find the other half, I'll get it to glue together, and I'll come back and show you what it looks like. Alright, so I've got that glued together now. I've actually drawn a 1mm hole through the wheel so I can get it on a cocktail stick. It's easier to handle. I have also noticed that when you glue it together, they're sort of like this. So we're going to have to do some sanding anyway. But this is actually the two parts. This is what's called an anti-shimmy wheel. As you can see, it's got two contact areas with the ground, and it stopped the wheel like your shopping trolley does with the wheel shimmy. It stops it doing that. So basically, we need to fill that in because it's not correct for this period. So normally I would use sprue goo. And I've got my sprue goo here. You can see this is basically styrene card in Tamiya extra thin. The reason I do that was the way Phil Flory talked about doing it, because basically the styrene you use on your models is not pure styrene. Styrene card is not pure styrene either, but it's very, very stable. Some manufacturers' sprue goos, you put them down and they just disappear, they just shrink to nothing. Other manufacturers, the only time I ever use manufacturer's sprue is like with Hong Kong models or with Hasegawa, where the plastic is particularly hard. I want the same consistency of plastic when I'm sanding. So in this case, if you don't want to make a big, the other thing you can do is use clear sprue. You end up with a clear sprue goo, and that is basically clear sprue, again dissolved in Tamiya extra thin or any styrene glue. A lot of people use the glue that comes in the starter sets, and they make their sprue goo from that, because it's not very good as a glue. Anyway, enough said about that. So what I'm going to show you is how to make just like a little bit if you just want to do it now. You don't want to, you don't want to make a complete batch of it like I've got there. So what we do is just get a bit of sprue like this and cut off some shavings off the end, make them as small as you can, tiny little pieces, and then you could even scrape it and use the bits you scraped like so. I mean, that would probably be even better, but it would take you quite a while to do. And then we can just put that on that upturned Tamiya paint jar, or anything that's made of glass or metal or something that's not going to be affected by the glue. And then we can get a pipette, and here's a pipette, and we can take some glue from our Tamiya extra thin bottle and just put it on there. Okay, and I would do this in a well ventilated area, window open, fan on, whatever, and then just leave it for a few minutes. And what will happen is the glue will start to dissolve the plastic, and you will end up with you can see all the parts all sticking together. Try and keep them separated, and that way you get more contact area with the glue. And what will happen, it will all dissolve. The glue will want to evaporate. You may have to add some more. But what will happen is you will end up with a gooey mess of glue and sprue. And if you keep agitating it, it will help it go along. So I'm just going to keep doing this just for a few minutes, and then we'll see how long it takes, and then I'll come back and I'll show you what we're going to do with it. Alright, so there we go. You can see we've got like a sticky gooey mess going on Still needs a bit longer, perhaps add a bit more extra thin just to thin it down a bit. But you just put that in, let it dry, and sand it back. The disadvantages with this, it takes ages to dry, and it will shrink back a lot. So I'm not going to use it. What we're going to do is we're going to use a piece of plastic strip. Now I've cut a piece of plastic strip here, and it's about 1.3 millimeters wide, I think it was, which is the size of the gap. So we need that to glue into there. So the first thing we're going to do is cut it to length. So if you remember before I mentioned how handy these things are, or was that in another video, I can't remember, but these things are so handy. So that's 9.1 times pi. I'm not going to pretend I've worked it out in my mind, I've just worked it out on a calculator, and it's about 28.5 millimeters. So if we cut this to about 28.5 millimeters, making sure we've got it flush on the end, we go to about 28.5 millimeters like there, right? Okay, so that's that. I should have curled it up first, shouldn't I? And what we're going to do now is squeeze it between something and curl it up like so. Oh, I've broken it now. You get the idea. You curl it up. What I should have done is curl it up before I cut it off, but idiot. Just pull it under a rule and it will curl up. As you can see, just like you do with paper, you can make it curl up just like so. Alright, and then that will wrap around there, and we can just glue it in place. Okay, so that's miraculously the piece that I cut off is the right length, which is incredible. So I'm just going to square that end up. And then we can get some extra thin into here. I'm going to make that go round a bit tighter. Styrene sheet these days is not what it used to be, believe me. There's some stuff out there these days that is just awful. There's some French stuff out there which is terrible. We may be able to actually roll this on the bench and get it to go around. Go on, stand up. Oh. We may be able to roll this on here and make it roll around. Something metallic. Let's try rolling it over something softer. And then we'll kind of try something smaller in diameter. Back in a second. Alright, so using a small metal shaft like this on a sanding stick, I managed to get it to go. So go right to the ends, go right off the ends if you can. And that way you'll make sure the ends go around, you don't end up with straights. So that's like that. So that should now just pop into that groove in the wheel, just like so. I'm just going to have to sand it down and make it a little bit narrower in one area, I think. I think it's a little bit wide just at the top. Alright, so finally there we go. You can see I've got it glued in there. And miraculously, that was, you know, I made this piece to length and it broke. And the piece that was left behind is perfect. There's a tiny, tiny little gap in there just by my finger. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a little bit of this sprue goo that I made. So we are going to, in fact what I'm going to do is add some more extra thin here to get a nice wet bit going, because it wants to be sort of wettish. Then we just got that lump of goo there, and we can just push that into that hole just like so. There we are. And I'll tell you what, while I think of it, while we've got this here, we've got that wheel with a hole in it. So we can fill that in with it as well. There we go. Just push that into that hole. There we go. That's gone in. There we are. Right, I'm going to call that a day for this video. We've got the wings on. As you know, we're going to put the top half on next. And we've got a few bits and pieces glued together. So hope you've enjoyed that little snippet. And I'll see you soon for part 8. We are covering every single little bit of this build. So if you think there's not enough going on in the videos, then you can always fast forward or whatever. But I know that a lot of people like to see everything I'm doing. That's why my videos are a little bit slow. Right, see you all soon. Thank you for watching. Bye.